Good morning from paradise. My name is Crypto Amaru. We got Crypto Hitman in the house. It is Monday, March 3rd, a perhaps monumentous week for crypto. Yesterday, we saw Trump announce that not only will the strategic reserve go forward, but that it will be a crypto strategic reserve. There'll be multiple assets in it. So we'll digest that. We'll analyze that. What does that mean? Will it happen? So we'll talk that through. Some other big news that transpired over the weekend. The Pulsechain case, actually the SEC lost that case in court. So that's notable, particularly because you guys know Surf Token is launching on Pulsechain. And then we can talk about where do we go from here. Is this the start of Altseason? Are these catalysts we needed to kick things off and make 2025 the blow-off top year that we're all expecting? So, all right, cool. With that, I was out with my family at the mall, shopping, not feeling great. I was like, "Hun, we ain't spending. And then, boom, the news hits, and it's like, "Oh, okay. You go ahead. You can go get buy yourself something nice." Because wow, what a turn of events! Unbelievable that we go from basically no news around the strategic reserve for what feels like weeks or even months, and then bam, not only is Bitcoin going to be a part of it, but ETH and all those other assets. So what was your first take when you saw that news?
Well, at first I saw the copy-paste of the Truth Social post that just talked about it being XRP, Solana, and ADA in this, digital asset reserve or whatever. And that's kind of puzzling a little bit. Obviously, I've been in space for a while. The only time I really owned XRP was in 2017 on the run-up from like a half a penny to $3. Obviously, didn't have a lot of capital back then, so it is what it is. But after that, it's been rinse and repeat for XRP. It does well around November, around their swell conference, get people hyped, and then their founders, insiders all dump on your head. It's really a centralized product. The founder also is part of founding XLM. They do the same thing over there. So, XRP for me doesn't really fit the strategic reserve mantra because there's still hundreds of millions of tokens in the hands of insiders there, and just very centralized, not a real utility play in my mind. ADA, Cardano, obviously Charles Hoskinson helped found Ethereum and a lot of tech there, but it has like 10 million a day in on-chain volume, very low. And then Solana is a VC token. It was invested in by VCs. It was also heavily owned and invested in by who? Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. So those are all kind of puzzling choices to me, in my opinion. But then it was quickly followed up by saying, hey, the main and the heart of the strategic reserve is still be Bitcoin and Ethereum, which made a lot more sense, which helped the market pump even higher, and I think which relieved some people other than the Bitcoin maxis. So we'll see how things progress. I know they have some kind of digital asset conference, I think March 7th, so we'll see how fast these things can become a reality. Remember, that is just the executive order. United States has not bought any tokens yet, and it's not officially law yet. So we do have some more catalysts coming up as the market is digesting the hopium in which we saw yesterday.
Yeah, I guess on one hand, the way you described it sort of makes me think that did Trump just go to like the top 10 coin market cap coins, not really having done a lot of research and being like, all right, we're investing in these. It kind of felt like a noob take, if you look at it from that stance. But like you said, the core of it is going to be Bitcoin and Ethereum. If you want to dabble in some of those other ones, I suppose that's okay. But it is pretty risky, I would think, for the United States government to essentially. Some of these are no better than just normal tech companies. Yeah, there's a decentralization component, blockchain component, but ADA, relatively centralized. Ripple, we know, very centralized. So a lot of risk there. What happens if something happens to Charles Hoskinson? It's very different than a Bitcoin or Ethereum. That those chains and assets will stand on their own 2 feet, irrespective of what happens with certain leadership and things of that nature. So that's got to be the core. It's going to be very interesting to me to see how much and how far Trump is willing to go with an executive order. Because from a constitutional standpoint, right, I used to be a lawyer, studied this stuff. The Congress controls the purse, as it's known, right? Congress is supposed to be in control of expenditures, right? And this would qualify as such, as if they're investing money into crypto. And so how far can Trump, or is he willing to go with an executive order to say, we're bypassing Congress completely, and we're going to invest in these assets, through whatever avenue he deems that he's wanting to do that. And then does a lawsuit ensue saying, no, that was Congress's, province, and they didn't vote for this or blah, blah, blah. So it's going to become very interesting. My take was and continues to be that with the executive order, Trump can basically start this strategic reserve using the Bitcoin that's already been confiscated. That's not really saying, okay, take money to buy more. That's just saying, all right, we're going to hodl on to this existing Bitcoin. That to me is that's a safer play from a legal standpoint. If all of a sudden you're saying, hey, we're buying all this stuff and you didn't go through Congress, that is opening yourself up to lawsuits. So we'll see how this all goes down. March 7th is supposed to be a big day. Tomorrow, I guess, is a big announcement, a little bit of a cryptic thing that he came out with, today, saying tomorrow something's going to happen. So we'll see. But as soon as you start to say, hey, Congress, the government's got to buy these crypto assets, I don't know how far that gets in the courts.
Yeah, and we'll see. Also, I think what's important to remember, at least my speculation, is this is going to be a weighted strategic reserve. Now, what does that mean? In traditional finance, if you invest in an index or a basket of assets, the percentage ownership that fund owns is based on the market capitalization and the value of those companies at that given time. My speculation in my video I did yesterday, I think, was just posted to Crypto Paradise, said, I don't know, maybe something like 75% Bitcoin, 15% Ethereum, and 5% of the other three. So people see the big names, but it's going to be a much smaller percentage. And then today we found out that Grayscale just launched an investment product, and it's titled, hey, investing in what the USA Strategic Reserve is going to be. So it's those 5 assets. And what do you know? Bitcoin is 75%, Ethereum is 13%, and the other 3 are somewhere between 1.75 to 5%. And that would be in line with what their market capitalizations are on CoinMarketCap, and that's how you're weighting it in your investment. Now, if one of those grows exponentially, then you're going to rebalance your weighting, and the weighting is going to be higher for the better performing asset. That's how it works in traditional markets for indexes, and maybe that's what the United States will do for a strategic reserve. I do hope that we do a standalone like gold strategic reserve. We do a Bitcoin strategic reserve, something standard, and maybe we have a crypto investment class. Because like you said, investing in some of the other ones is just like investing in a tech stock. But we do know that the United States does invest in sectors, in investment classes, and they do make money off that way. We just saw not too long ago that Japan or whoever wanted to invest billions of dollars in the U.S. AI sector. So this is a way that funds do move around, governments do make money off new technology, and maybe that's kind of the angle. As long as they separate the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, that's what I would prefer, and then they treat the rest as like an index. But we'll see. Regardless, if they do bunch them all together, I think it's going to be a weighted strategic reserve. Very small percentages of the XRP, the ADA, and the Solana. Very heavy in the favor of Bitcoin. And then you find Ethereum somewhere between 10 to 15% allocation for that strategic reserve.
Yeah, that would be perfectly reasonable way to do it. That's probably how they'll do it. And perhaps the announcement coming tomorrow and or Friday is related to this sovereign wealth fund, which is it's an investment vehicle that a lot of wealthy nations have if they have surpluses, right? Saudi Arabia, a lot of oil money. Norway, oil money. A lot of the Scandinavian countries, they have these sovereign wealth funds where they can invest in various assets around the world. Trump proposed doing that for the U.S. I think it's a wonderful idea. Why shouldn't we, instead of just giving away our money, to various interests or foreigners or whatever, why not invest it and try to make a return, right? So I think it's very smart. And I think perhaps you will see the sovereign wealth fund announcement and some sort of integration then with the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve or this weighted index or what have you. I could see that happening. So we'll see how that plays out tomorrow, but or on Friday. But obviously huge news. Markets, rebounded very nicely. Do you think this now is the catalyst for the start of the long-awaited alt season?
Well, I'm looking at the chart, and we just went from, 78,000 to 95,000 on that news. And now if you go on the Twitter feed again, people are acting like it's over because we're down at 90,000, 91,000 Bitcoin. Like, oh my God, it's over. Okay, that's still a move from 78,000 to 91,000 in the course of 2 days. All right, so like we need to slow your roll. Things don't go straight up into the right forever. In my opinion, could we go lower than 78? I guess it would be really hard to believe that. I mean, to me, I just keep looking at this, and I'm looking at the information we have, and why I'm not trying to trade out and try to buy back cheaper. It's like you just had all these SEC case dismissals. Coinbase, Consensus, Uniswap, blah blah blah. You just had Richard Hart and Pulsechain beat the SEC in court. Now you have Trump telling you not only are we doing a Bitcoin strategic reserve, he wants to do a crypto strategic reserve. Now you have Trump talking about a sovereign wealth fund. Now you have him doing a federal conference for digital assets only on March 7th. There's so much bullishness going on. And then at the same time in the back end, you got Michael Saylor still buying. El Salvador's buying a minimum of 1 Bitcoin per day. You got a Japanese company buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. I understand the chart isn't reflecting it, but when I hear all the macro news and who's buying and these are strongholders and what the plan is for, making crypto great again in America and how much America impacts traditional financial assets, I think the same will replicate with digital financial assets, and that's why I don't know how you can't be bullish and how you could say, hey, the top's already in 109,000 Bitcoin, that's it, and we're in a bear market. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I did a bunch of content last week saying very, very low probability we're moving into a crypto winter. It would belie all logic, and you just stated basically all the reasons. The other reason would be the fact that we are now in the year, 1 year past the halving, which historically, every other cycle has always been the parabolic year. It hasn't been the year that things like crash and go into a multi-year bear market. That comes later, right? And you've never had this much support in pro-crypto policies and pro-crypto individuals at the highest levels of government. It's just never happened before. It's always been the opposite. It's always the government's trying to kill it. So we're in a brave new world. I don't see how this could be the start of a crypto winter. That makes zero sense. Now, is yesterday's announcement and the crypto strategic reserve, et cetera, is that the start of Altseason? Perhaps. I think at the end of the day, why are these assets down? Why is the stock market down? It's a lot to do with the fears of these tariffs. And, first of all, there's a question still whether they'll actually go into effect, the ones against Mexico and Canada. There's still 1 day to go. I could see a world in which Trump says, all right, had meetings with the countries, they're going to do X, Y, Z, we're putting a pause on them, or we're not going to do them. That could definitely happen. I could see that happening. Or he could say, we're moving forward with the tariffs with respect to certain industries or certain products, okay? Wall Street's going to love that. Hey, reasonable heads prevailed, cooler heads prevailed. We're not doing blanket tariffs, which is bad for the economy, right? For the most part. That could happen. Or if it does move forward. The video I did last week said, look, in isolation, tariffs probably inflationary, right? That's the fear about tariffs. People are worried it's going to be inflationary. Fed can't cut rates, bad for risk assets. Okay, we get that. Tariffs probably inflationary in a vacuum. But we're not in a vacuum. We're in, the context of a lot of new policies put forth by Trump in terms of immigration, in terms of Doge, cutting spending, in terms of taxes, in terms of all these things. So we really don't know what's going to happen with inflation. I think these tariff fears were overblown. I think it was last week, overreaction, typical, fear-based sell-off in the traditional markets and crypto, not really related to so much reality, so much as fears, right? Emotions. And so I think we're going to, worst case scenario, slowly creep up out of the lows, which I think were put in last week. And maybe a V-shaped recovery if Trump comes out tomorrow and says super bullish stuff, right, and cancel these tariffs, for example.
Yeah,
so
I could agree. I think a V-shaped recovery is possible if the strategic reserve information comes out quickly. Maybe that happens on Friday the 7th. Also, if the tariffs, like I said, if they're not blanket, that could be another catalyst tomorrow on March 4th. And then, there's now rumors that Zelensky reached back out and he's trying to redo the mineral deal. So, if you get a peace deal, a mineral deal with Russia and Ukraine anytime soon, that's another catalyst. I think another fear that people have over their heads. Obviously, he just came to the Washington, D.C. was supposed to sign a mineral deal that was going to help with the ceasefire. They argued. He didn't sign. He left. And, that's more fear on the markets as well. So there is rumor floating around today that Zelensky has reached back out and is trying to, fix up the deal, sign the mineral deal, and see how we can move forward. And, Putin every single day is saying, hey, I want a deal, but the problem is Putin wants the deal where he gets to keep the warm water port that they've already taken over. Ukraine doesn't want to give up the warm water port, and that's why we're in the stalemate. And Trump's somewhere in the middle. It's like, hey, just let's settle it what it is. We'll do a mineral deal. We'll protect you. Let them keep that land, and let's stop having people die and let the global economy pick back up. So where do we land in all that? I don't know. But if that deal would happen, that would be another major catalyst, in my opinion, for the markets. Some fear that's looming now that would get resolved.
I think the Ukraine war is going to be resolved relatively soon. Probably not on terms it's going to make every person happy. Certain sides are going to feel they got their short end of the stick. But the status quo of just perpetual war is also bad. So I do think that's going to get resolved. I don't know how much that's been weighing on the markets. Perhaps we'll see a bounce. I mean, it would make sense. To me, the bigger issue is just inflation, tariffs. Just economic policy more so than the geopolitics side, but that will help. If we get news tomorrow that Ukraine war is over, the market will respond positively. But I just think, we always say on this channel, you got to zoom out, you got to think long term, and I think this is one of these moments, right? Like, yes, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of just daily news, and we love to talk about the daily news and stuff. But let's not lose sight of the fact that long term, Bitcoin, the best performing asset of the past 10 years or more, right? We know Ethereum's underperformed, we know Alt's underperformed, but they always have their moment in the sun at some point in the cycle as well. So, it's fun to talk about the news. It's fun to dig into these topics and so on. You can, get some good information here on this channel. But best play is oftentimes just hodl through the chaos. Just hodl through, and I bet in 1, 2, 3, 6 months from now, we'll be looking back and going, oh wow, remember the tariff FUD? That was funny. I can't believe people sold at 78,000. Suckers, what idiots. We were now sitting at 150.
I just picture Choose Rich Nick's video where he just is laughing in the camera saying you sold with his big old ugly face. That's so funny. It's a big meme now in the crypto space. But we see now that Ethereum is underperforming again today at $2,300. But remember, people already forgot there's 1.4 billion of ETH stolen from a centralized exchange, and apparently they have been able to sell out and launder 70% of that 1.4 billion already. So once they can get the rest of that 400 million laundered or whatever, that will relieve some of the ETH pain as well. Remember, the laundering means they're selling out of ETH to get it to another asset, whether that's Bitcoin or stables, to eventually get it into the real world and get it out of the crypto markets. So that means they've already sold about $1 billion to 1.1 billion worth of ETH into this rally as well.
Yeah, that's a big overhang that I don't know if a lot of people have been thinking about, because that was news from 2 weeks ago. That's old news, right? People forgot about that. But that's a good point. I know that yes, ETH has underperformed. Most alts have underperformed, but that's not completely outside of the norm in the early part of the cycle. And you could say, well, maybe this isn't the early part of the cycle anymore. We already had a year, almost a year since the halving. Yes, okay, but if you look historically, normally alt season, quote unquote, does start around this time of the year after the halving, right? End of February, now we're in early March. So we're really not too far outside of the norm. Of course, it hurts if you've been holding Ethereum as I have for, as long as I have. But, unless you need the money now, the markets have a way over time of taking care of themselves and moving back into bullish phases. We've been pretty bearish for about the past 2 months, right? The Trump trade happened, all the hype, all the excitement, he's coming into office, he can do this, that, the other thing. Okay, maybe there was inaction in certain areas, the tariffs that scared people, inflation fears come back a little bit, and we had a downtrend for the past 2 or 3 months. That downtrend is going to end at some point. My guess, yesterday, could signal the end of that downtrend, and we started to see a sustained move up on altcoins.
Yeah, and with that, talking about altcoins, we just have more breaking news that just came out 19 minutes ago. The SEC dropped yet another case against Kraken which is a major centralized exchange and a US-based exchange who has altcoins on there. So yet another SEC case drop. It seems like one every day. I didn't even know that there was this many SEC cases open. You know, in a different part of the market cycle earlier, leading into the Bitcoin halving, when Bitcoin was starting to rally into the Bitcoin ETF, if SEC dropped a case, assets were moving 200%, 300% with that news. Now they're happening so rapidly, maybe the market doesn't care as much, it's not as exciting, or maybe the market just hasn't digested all this information just yet. These are some of the biggest players in the crypto space that drive the most amount of retail investment, that have the most amount of funds available, that are getting their SEC cases dismissed, and in Richard Heart and Pulsechain's case, beating the SEC. That allows them to do a lot more stuff, way more freed up with marketing, onboarding, and with the capital that they have to deploy it back into crypto and feel safe that they can do so because they don't have the SEC overhang or whether they're going to get fined $200 million or whatever it may be. So another case just dropped today, 19 minutes ago. SEC dropped a case against Kraken. Pretty big news.
Yeah, I love it. It's an absolute paradigm shift from the highest level of government and how they treat crypto. I think these dismissals or victories in the case of Pulsechain they're huge for a few reasons. Yes, they free up capital, time for these businesses. Apparently, Coinbase spent $50 million defending that lawsuit. So that's a lot of money, right? So that's money, time freed up to pursue their business interests. One of the biggest things actually coming out of all these lawsuits getting dropped is that staking is now back on the table. There's going to be Ethereum staking included within the ETF. That is going to come at some point this year. That's already been applied for, I believe, and that's under review. The SEC is going to approve that, right? And now these exchanges, I just read today that Uphold, which is it's kind of like it's a centralized exchange. I think it's based out of the UK. They're now reintroducing staking for their users. It's a centralized exchange, but you can go and you can stake. They had removed that option because they were afraid of the SEC coming after them. Now they're not afraid anymore. They're reintroducing it. I think you'll see Kraken probably reintroduce it as well. Remember, Kraken had gotten fined a lot in the lawsuit. I think was largely based around the staking, which is completely ridiculous. But now that I'm an average user, right, I can go buy my crypto assets, earn 5-10% or more in some cases. If you're staking like Cosmos or Polkadot, I think it's even higher. But you can earn pretty damn good yields staking now. That's a big benefit and a big means of onboarding new people. So I think there's a lot of positive news that just flows from, okay, the case got dismissed, but what's the implication of that? There's a lot of positive stuff that's coming out of this.
Yeah, and staking for the people in the crypto market, it keeps them holding longer term, which is good for our floor price. But also for traditional investors, they are used to seeing dividends. And on major companies, you're looking at dividends of 0.5% to 1.5%. And you come here, and even on Ethereum, you can get 3 to 5% APY by staking. That's pretty impressive. And a lot of the time, the staking rewards are paid in the native currencies. So if they start staking in a bull market, that's how you really get the FOMO, because they are earning 5%, but in ETH. And then ETH doubles in price. It's like they earn 10% versus, Apple or Disney, where they're getting like 1.5%. So I think staking or dividend payouts is something that traditional market participants really understand. And if it's presented that way by the financial advisor, then it's super simple for them. They're like, oh, wait, I can take allocation into ETH, which is a high speculative play, but still earn a 5% dividend for doing so. That's something that interests them greatly, in my opinion.
Yeah, super positive for crypto and altcoins. Another, I think, catalyst coming up. You talk about Ethereum. We have this Petra update, which is the biggest upgrade to the network since I think 1 or 2 years ago, when you had the upgrade that allowed people that moved to basically proof of stake, right? So this is the biggest upgrade we've had in a few years. I'm not sure of all the technical nuances of it, but normally what you'll see, and I'll do some research and just do some videos about it. But normally what you see leading up to these big upgrades is a run up, right? It's a buy the rumor sort of thing. So I would not be surprised. I don't think they've announced the date of the actual launch of Petra. They've been testing it on the various test nets, but they haven't launched the deployment onto the mainnet yet. I think once that gets announced, you'll start to see Ethereum move as well. The one big thing that it does, as I understand it, there's a lot of technical upgrades, related to L2s and things of that nature. But one of the big upgrades from kind of a financial standpoint is that you as a maintainer or staker on the network are no longer limited to tranches of 32 ETH. You can do anywhere between like 32 to 2,048 or something like that. So you can do a lot more. You can stake a bigger amount, which helps with compounding. So positive for sure on the financial side, and I think on the tech side as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a run on ETH starting when Petra gets announced.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think I saw something floating around that they're targeting sometime in April. But again, no real news, and that could be a month from now. That could be 2 months from now. So we'll see. That would be very helpful, of course, and would be another selling point for traditional market people who are getting onboarded. Remember, these individuals are looking for fundamentals for their companies that they invest in. So having fundamentals like this and upcoming dates for Ethereum is something that will help them on board. My other interesting point is there was like $2 billion of outflows from ETFs yesterday, and at 94,000, nearly all those people were underwater. This was by on last week and Friday. So it'd be interesting to see if those people decide to FOMO back in because they're selling at lower prices than even today.
Crazy. I hate taking losses. Guys, if you're listening to this channel, do everything you can to avoid taking a loss. Taking a loss really hurts you in your long-term investment journey because you're missing out on all the potentially compounding gains you could be getting if you didn't take that loss. So if it means holding on for another couple months, right, understanding where we're at in the cycle, this crypto stuff is not going anywhere. It's going to go up. It's going to go up. We've had a 2-month downtrend. These downtrends don't last forever. We've had a lot of catalysts. My guess, you start to see a sustained uptrend. So don't take losses, people, please, for the love of God. Any final thoughts there before we jump off today?
More breaking news that I guess we can add in before we jump off. We were just talking about tariffs, and that's a really big thing. Honda just announced that they're now to build their new Honda Civic models starting this year in Indiana, not Mexico, because of the potential Trump tariffs. So remember, this is part of the calling card of what Trump said the tariffs could do, and that is bring companies here, which means what? More tax revenues, more employees, more citizens getting these paid jobs. And now Honda is jumping on board, building what is their number one performing car, their best-selling car, the Honda Civic, very affordable sedan for you guys who don't know. They are moving that factory and building it in Indiana, not Mexico, due to potential proposed tariffs and the belief in the administration here in America. They sell 210,000 Civics per year at an average price of $25,000 to $35,000, depending on how they are built.
Yeah, look, I've been on record saying that tariffs potentially have a lot of benefits, particularly if you're in the manufacturing sector. If you are if you're someone who works in a factory, you're unhappy with globalization. You're happy with tariffs. Well, I'm not in the. I'm in the financial services and speculation business. So, for me, you start talking about tariffs, it hurts the markets. I don't like them. But there's winners in this tariff stuff. So I've been on record, bashing tariffs, but there are absolutely winners. I'm happy for anyone whose job is being onshored. That's positive. Let's see, I don't want the cost of my car to go up too much because that, frustrates me. But hey, more Americans having jobs, tax dollars coming in, all those positive things. So hopefully we can thread the needle here. Hopefully we can have a world where there's onshoring happening, Americans can have jobs, economy can grow, so on and so forth, but that inflation doesn't rear its ugly head again because of big tariffs. That's the fear, right? Inflation. We do not want that. We want low interest rates.
Low interest rates, low inflation, increased money supply across the globe, and there we go.
That's what we need. So, look, Trump's not dumb. He knows this. But, the reality is that there's, countervailing effects with each one of these policies. And he's got to say, okay, this particular constituency, they need me to do this. This other constituency, they need me to do that. And sometimes those things are in conflict. And so we'll see. We'll see. But that's why, look, I'm long-term crypto and Bitcoin. You guys know this. You are too. And when you're long-term, and when your time horizon is 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you can get through these, moments of fear and these downtrends or whatever. So, irrespective of what ultimately happens with these tariffs, and my guess is they either get resolved or they end up bebeing more targeted. But regardless of what happens, long-term trend, for Bitcoin and the other major crypto assets is up. Just remember that.
Yeah, I think that we kind of covered everything, and things are looking pretty good here. Again, I think when in doubt, zoom out. I still think we're looking at a massive bull market in the face. I've been on the record saying 244,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year. I know Thomas Lee just went on and said 150,000 minimum by the end of this year, which is $60,000 more than here. And we'll see what that means for Ethereum. Hopefully Ethereum can get the ball rolling, start outperforming Bitcoin, and that's where we get that alt season. And that's where people can change their life and find their real financial freedom in a very short amount of time.
Awesome. Well, good stuff today, and we'll be back probably tomorrow with another one. Until then, see you on the beach.